They had 90 seconds to escape. "90 seconds before they would be inevitably crushed by the crowd, incapacitated by toxic fumes, or burned alive." Hi, it's Francis B. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most harrowing videos on YouTube. I cannot believe it is still up, but it is. So let's talk about it. This all occurred at the nightclub, The Station. It occurred in February of 2003 in West Warwick, Rhode Island.
West Warwick was originally part of Warwick, but this old mill town with many factions and many ethnic groups fought to stand on its own.
Put yourself in their shoes. You maybe are from this smaller town and you guys decide that you want to go out on the club for the night. And you've never heard of this band. It's called Great White, but you decide to go with your friends. Before you know it, it's about 11 o'clock at night. Everybody's had some drinks, okay? And the lights start to dim on the stage to signify that the show's about to start. We're going to be looking at the NIST reports, the National Institutes of Science and Technology, to kind of see how things went awry, where they went awry. And the report itself is over 200 pages. I have combed through it all, but I will save you guys all the trouble. I will attempt to elaborate on some parts of it, but I have 2 brain cells, so if I get anything wrong, I apologize. Let's go through the timeline, the countdown. The NIST reports show that within just 90 seconds of the fire starting, temperatures and the presence of toxic gases made conditions in the nightclub unsurvivable. It's 11:08 p.m., 7 to 8 seconds in the video, we can see that the pyrotechnics ignite, and by 26 seconds, the flames are already extensive, touching the ceiling and the floor on one side of the stage. Around this point, the person filming starts to notice the extent of the fire and starts to make a beeline for the exit. The band stops playing and we can hear the singer say something along the lines of, "Oh, well, that's not good." At this point, the crowd realizes, in my opinion, they realize, oh, this isn't a part of the show. This isn't theatrical, this is a real fire. And they start to panic. The fire alarm begins to sound and it is complete pandemonium. 11:09 p.m., 911 calls start pouring in, and we can see people attempt to file out of the building. Smoke is just billowing all around them. It is complete chaos. The crowd crush is beginning. The flow of people through the front exit slows and then ceases completely. So now whoever is left in the building is completely trapped.
The stampeding crowd had created a lethal bottleneck.
We're officially at a deadly impasse. Time's up for those who were stuck inside. Around the 3-minute mark, we can hear the screams inside are tapering off. At the 5-minute mark, flames are quickly taking over the building, and it continues until we can see that the roof is breached, obviously indicative of full building involvement. So, why did this escalate so quickly? NIST determined that the core hazardous material present was the polyurethane foam. It lined the walls directly behind the platform. They did a series of tests as well as real-scale mock-ups to make this determination. They found that the foam, number 1, didn't take long to ignite. Number 2, reached extreme temperatures very, very quickly. In real-scale mock-ups, NIST found that in their unsprinklered case, the temperatures at the ceiling increased over 800 degrees Celsius in approximately 50 seconds. In just over 110 seconds, the temperatures at the floor and at the platform had increased to over 600 degrees Celsius. That's over 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's discuss a particular concept: tenability. In regards to fire safety, essentially this just means the conditions in which humans can function at an acceptable level. Tenability decreases when temperatures exceed over 120 degrees Celsius or when oxygen drops below 12%. These conditions aren't ideal but can be tolerated for a short period of time, like running through a room to get to safety. For the unsprinklered mock-up, oxygen dropped below 12% in less than 87 seconds, and conditions became untenable very, very quickly. Not only did the temperatures increase and oxygen decrease, but the polyurethane foam released deadly toxic gases. Carbon monoxide was released. It binds to hemoglobin in your blood more readily than oxygen and leads to oxygen deprivation and asphyxiation, even when oxygen is present in the air. Hydrogen cyanide was also released, which is a fast-acting chemical asphyxiant. And aromatic hydrocarbons, they're toxic acids that contribute to the density of the black smoke seen when polyurethane foam is burned. They also can cause severe irritation in your eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. Other contributing factors. NIST determined that even at the building's normal capacity, fatalities would have been inevitable. But the building's legal capacity was approximately 400 to 430 occupants. It varied depending on things like where the pool tables were placed. On this particular night, the club was overcrowded. 462 people were present, and this overcrowding worsened the inevitable crowd crash. The building layout definitely contributed to the fire's lethality as well. There were 4 exits, 3 of which were labeled, but most people really only paid mind to the doors they'd come through, which were the front doors. About 2/3 of the people exited that way. So what was the problem? There was a 3-foot hallway before the double exit doors, and it made it extremely, extremely difficult for large volumes of people to fit through there. So just imagine this. You have an exceptional amount of people battling for one exit, and remember, they only had 90 seconds to escape before conditions became untenable. So what were the results of this fire? 100 people died, 230 people were injured, and countless people's lives were changed forever.
Leaving her on the floor of the club, gasping for air and praying.
The last thoughts in my head were of my 2 children, my 2 sons, and I just remember thinking, dear God, please let them forgive me for dying in this place and let them have a good life.
Kane was here to visit his son's memorial, and 10 years after the tragedy, Kane describes what he and other families are feeling today.
It is tough for anybody, tough for all the families. We feel, however, and have always felt that our son Nicky is with us in a very real sense and continues to be. Just as we would never leave him, he's not leaving us.
Well, I wanted to get particularly the left hand because there really wasn't anything surgically that they could do to improve it. So this was my next best option. I'll just do this for like 10 minutes.
Who's really at fault? The club owners. Some say that the Derderian brothers were at fault for a number of reasons, but we'll go through some of the big ones. They purchased and installed the cheap version of the polyurethane foam, which inarguably contributed to the fire's lethality and was the cause of the, quote, flashover that occurred. They ultimately chose the material due to its low cost, prioritizing cheap soundproofing over safety. Plus, putting up this foam on the walls violated code for a public venue, and some argued that they were aware of this and did it anyways. In the sprinkler case in the NIST mock-up, the fire was quelled in less than 50 seconds. Yes, it still would have been a dangerous fire, but it's likely that people would have had some time to actually escape. People said that the brothers oversold the venue that night, which allowed for overcrowding and contributed to the mass casualties. There was also evidence that the brothers permitted illegal pyrotechnics, although they vehemently deny any knowledge of this. Testimony and evidence presented suggested that the brothers knew of the plan for pyrotechnics. In addition, there was evidence that there were other bands that had used pyrotechnics on the stage on previous occasions. He was the one who ignited and planned the pyrotechnics that caused the deadly fire. Some say that Fire Marshal Dennis LaRocque was responsible. He was the one who was responsible for inspecting the club, and he had commented in some of his reports that, quote, the exit sign near the entrance needed bulbs. The building owner was told to call when the issue was fixed or the building was to be re-inspected. The issue was later checked off and deemed okay, although re-inspection signatures were blank. He never questioned the flammability of the foam that was quite literally adhered to the walls. Standards at the time would have dictated that he should have done a simple field test. There were some people that argued that the fire department took too long. Did they? The first fire truck was confirmed on the scene in about 4 minutes after the first calls were made, which is well within NFPA standards, which dictates that a truck should be present and on the scene within 5 minutes and 24 seconds. They implemented a mass casualty incident plan within 10 minutes and did their best to help those who could be helped. So what ended up happening? Jeffrey and Michael Dedarian, the brothers that owned the club, they were charged with 100 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Bichelle pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 years in prison, 4 years to serve, and 11 years suspended, plus 3 years parole. He was released in March of 2008 and is currently still rebuilding his life in Florida somewhere. The brothers pled no contest. Michael received the same 4-year sentence as Bichelle and was released in 2009. Jeffrey received a sentence of 500 hours of community service. Why did Michael have a more extensive punishment? He was the one who purchased the polyurethane foam. The settlements. Civil litigation expanded the scope of accountability and resulted in a total of $176 million from over 64 defendants. The foam manufacturers, suppliers, one was Sealed Air Corporation. They agreed to pay $25 million worth in settlements, and American Foam agreed to pay $6.3 million. They were sued for allegedly failing to warn the club owners of the foam's flammability. As far as the government entities are concerned, Rhode Island and the town of West Warwick settled for $10 million, acknowledging the negligence of the state's fire inspector. Why was LaRocque not sentenced? While he was fired and faced civil litigation, a federal judge later dismissed the claims against him and the fire marshal, basically saying that they were protected from personal liability by state immunity statutes because they hadn't acted with bad faith or malice. Interestingly enough, Providence television station and their owners made an out-of-court settlement of $30 million. Some people had claimed that their video journalist Brian Butler was obstructing escape and not allowing for people to exit, as well as not assisting people. But another eyewitness account stated that his camera was on his shoulder, rolling, and that he did help at least one survivor. In addition to their sentences, the Dedarian brothers also reached settlement of $813,000 with survivors and their families. So in addition to these punishments, what happened as a result of this fire? Were there any major changes? The NFPA and ICC code reforms occurred because of this fire. The fire safety codes were brought into question because of the grandfather clause that allowed for the sprinklers to not be present and for everything that happened. They evaluated the the fire codes, thank God. In the summer of 2003, multiple amendments were made to these codes, and the most significant was the imposition of the retroactive requirement for automatic sprinklers in nightclub-type facilities with an occupant load of over 100. There were also now mandatory crowd managers. Basically, they now require trained crowd managers for all assembly occupancies, and they're responsible for identifying the secondary exits and guiding crowds. Pyrotechnics were banned indoors for new and existing facilities unless the facility has sprinklers, and now there are mandatory exit inspections as well as record keeping to ensure that the bottleneck exit effect couldn't happen again. Let's talk about the survivors. Gina Rousseau, she was severely burned and spent over 11 weeks in a coma, had over 70 surgeries, and lost her fiance that night. She is now the president of the Station Fire Memorial Fund. She's instrumental in advocating for those who were lost and in raising funds. She acquired the land where the fire took place and now oversees the permanent Station Fire Memorial Park. Rob Feeney is another survivor. He was severely burned, spent time in a coma as well, and lost his fiancée and 2 friends in the fire. He is now a dedicated national advocate for safety. He focuses heavily on mandatory sprinklers. He's an active member of Common Voices, which is a national coalition of fire survivors. The Station Education Fund was created by Jody King, who lost his brother in the fire, and the 2 club owners, surprisingly. It was created to raise money for the 76 children who lost a parent or parents, as well as children of fire survivors in general. It covers things like school supplies and allows some people to go to college that wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So let's touch on personal safety. If you're in an unfamiliar place, take note of all the exits, all of them, because in the event of an emergency, the main one that you went through, the entrance, will likely get blocked. If a fire starts, get low and stay low, because smoke and toxic gases are the fastest killers and they typically rise. Crouch down or crawl to find the freshest air near the floor. Once you see the fire start or you hear a fire alarm, don't wait to confirm that there's danger. Go immediately like the cameraman did. It likely saved his life. In the event of a seemingly impending crowd crush, go to the edges of the crowd. The center will likely have the highest pressure, so stay towards the edges if you can. Stay upright, do whatever you can to avoid falling. If you do fall, you are immediately in grave danger of being suffocated and crushed. If you can't get up, curl into a ball on your side. If you're standing in a crowd crush, to prevent your rib cage from being pushed in, use the fighter stance. It creates a critical breathing gap and prevents the pressure from, like I said, collapsing your rib cage. In conclusion, it's clear that everybody involved experienced long-lasting and irreparable damage. Whether it was physical harm, emotional harm, financial, or even legal harm. As tragic as this was, though, we were able to learn some crucial things, and safety and fire codes were changed because of this. The tragedy that unfolded was a deadly combination of human complacency and blatant negligence. In spite of the tragedy that this town has faced, though, in West Warwick, even more than 20 years later, the community's dedication to the Station Memorial and Survivor Funds stand as a testament to how strong they are. This is truly an incredible group of people. I encourage you to donate, support the cause. There's the Gina Rousseau Fund, the Station Fire Memorial Foundation, and the Station Nightclub Fire Children's Scholarship Fund. Please be responsible when donating. Of note, there are a few websites that have a similar name. Don't get duped. I can't be held responsible for that, but I do encourage you to donate, even if it's $1. It makes all the difference in the world. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you could learn something. And again, the most important part of all of this is remembering how quickly things can go awry. As per usual, all the links will be provided down in the Google Docs below. I have 2 scripts, one that I wrote and one that I rewrote, but all of the references will be located in those documents, as well as the NIST report that I referenced. And like I said, please go check out those funds. Stay safe and have a good night.